Hey everyone, it's good to see you. This is our weekly briefing. For those of you, I'm seeing some names and faces that are kind of newer. Welcome to our literally our Wednesday show. We do this every Wednesday, 2 o'clock Eastern, or what is it, Matt? 8 a.m. Sydney? I
9,
don't even
9 a.m. 9 a.m. It's
9
totally
a.m.
civilized.
Yeah, it really is civilized. We're not getting you at the breakfast table. We're getting you actually in an office building. It's really good to have that.
Yep, you're gonna
Um,
work, man.
So our intention of the weekly briefing really is to find topics that are relevant or timely to the moment. We actually read your posts in community, listen to conversations that you're having. I answer questions all week long. Joe, Matt, you guys answer questions all week long with our clients. So we're really kind of picking up the things that you're laying down for us, LinkedIn or whatever. But also, like in this case, we're really starting to prep for what does 2025 look like. And I just wanted to put some roadmap out there of the tools that we have, discussions that are already existing in community, or things that we can begin conversations on. And I want to prep you up for a 2025 budget conversation. If you're familiar with RevThink, you know what we do with our budget is we do the thing called a factors report, where we divide that total revenue into the decision points for the year or factors that influence profit. That's where the factors report comes from. And therefore, you come with roadmap out your year, look at decision points that you want to engage in, and really big pivots and investments that you can make for growth or opportunities that you're looking for yourself. So that's where we're going for with these conversations over the next couple of weeks. We start all of our conversations with like, let's understand and project revenue. And this year, inside of RevThink, actually, the conversation got a little spicy because Joe threw it down with me this week. He basically said, Tim, just saying you need $83,000 a month, so what? Like that doesn't actually give you the answers of how to get there. We need to find out like the big pieces first of if you're going to add $1 million a year, $83,000 a month to your revenue, you have to get a sense of like where that really comes from. So, Joe, I'm going to hand it off to you just with that punt. You can say hi and then like throw it down again. Give us some of this big picture of like where and why we start, where your intentions are.
Yeah. Hi. Good to see you all again. This conversation came about, though, as we were thinking about adding revenue when I looked back to the agency that I ran for a few years prior. And we did a lot of goal setting. We did a lot of big goal setting and we did a lot of dreaming. But I remember for years leaving all of our annual and quarterly goal setting meetings with a little bit of a so what. It's really cool to write $10 million on a whiteboard and like get a bunch of people fired up. Yeah, we're gonna do $10 million this year. One click underneath that is how, and one click underneath that is why. And so the why for me is actually where I want to start because it takes care of the how. And then worrying about adding $1 million or worrying about adding $10 million becomes a lot less daunting and a lot more exciting. But the why is a really big thing for me. So there are three questions I ask when I think about growing revenue and getting new business. The first one is, what kind of work do you like to do? If you're taking on projects that aren't fun, your team doesn't like them, you're not enjoying them, time and time again, they don't go in your reel. There's something, if not multiple things, that you're doing wrong. So the first question is, what kind of work do you like to do? The second question I like to ask myself is, what are the problems we're best equipped to solve for clients? And again, just because you can do something, just because you can sell it, doesn't mean you should. If your work is in concert with a solution to a real problem, you can sell more of it and you can find more people with that problem. If your work is work for the sake of work, don't ask that person for more work. They're not going to have seen your value. And then the third for me, so there's I've had just a blanking moment, which is really sad because I was on a roll. What do you
What's
like
the
to do? What? Oh, sorry.
what's the
You're
value of
good.
your solution, Joe?
Thank you, sir. I knew you'd bail me out. And what is the value of that solution? How is what you're providing different? How is what you're providing better? And frankly, like, why should anyone care about the thing that you offer? Or a different way to say that is like, why should someone buy the solution from you instead of doing nothing? So I like to start with asking ourselves those three questions. And in the answers to those three questions, are the answers to the type of projects you're supposed to go get. We can talk about talk about going to get them, but first let's figure out what they are.
Yeah, and let's just say as a teaser, we're going to get very practical of like once you have this roadmap put out before you, how those projects add up or how that value adds up. Because one of the first things we have to do in challenging ourselves in growing our company, growing revenue, securing revenue, whatever you're looking for as a goal, is to recognize that we start with this big why of what is it we'd like to do and are willing to do, because the sustainability of anything, taking on that burden, is one of the first things we're doing for our client. We better know how to do it and like doing it. Why would you want to grow or expand, ask for more effort if something you wouldn't want to do? You're just asking yourself for burnout. You won't. Not only will you not add 83,000, you're going to lose $83,000 a month in effort if you don't put that big rock in the jar first as you're kind of filling up your priorities.
Yeah. We used to play at Deloitte this game called Where to Play and How to Win, where everyone would scribble numbers on a whiteboard and everyone's money emotions would fluctuate. And yeah, it ended up being a pretty pointless exercise. So yeah, sometimes the answers are right there.
There's a pretty easy place to look for that answer, and it's your current client list. Who did you do work for this year? Who came back for more work? Who did you like working with? Who have you been working with the longest? Who would recommend you at the drop of a hat?
Mm.
Who generated most of your revenue last year? That's an easy place to start.
Well, and I love that because I think most people want to imagine that the $1 million they're missing exists in a cold outreach, some email campaign, some outreach bot or something like that. If they just this year finally got their newsletter up and running, then that magic funnel will kind of build stuff in there. And I'm not saying none of us are saying that the effort of marketing doesn't play into something. But if let's just say, for example, of a newsletter, what you're putting in that newsletter gives that flavor in the sense of what you do and what your value is and why that value, why that the service you provide creates value. That's the content within the newsletter and the marketing. And marketing, you think of it as just an amplifier that turns up whatever the message is in there. If you don't have a solid message or your message is very shallow and you turn up that, you're just making a lot of noise and you're not really cutting through that noise to create the growth and win in that outreach category.
When you're looking at like value is such a funny word, and people obviously have trouble estimating their own value. So when you're going back to your existing clients, how do you calculate your value? What are the things you do when you start looking at the existing relationship with your client and thinking about how you can morph that into something deeper, richer, more valuable?
First, it's just asking questions, not just how did you like the work. Obviously, if you're willing to ask them a question, you can assume they liked your work. Where did you use this work? What happened to it? What did your boss think about it? What did your customers think about it? And what do you wish it did that it didn't? Those are easy questions over coffee, over lunch, over a drink, that don't have to be tied to something that feels like a business development effort. It can feel like a fact-finding effort. And so your best clients come back to you because you provided value. There's nothing standing in the way of you asking for clarity on what that value is if there's someone who wants to work with you again anyway. So right off the bat, just ask the things you don't know. And it happens, right? As studios, especially when we think about sort of like live action and motion design, we make things that are awesome and we make things that make our clients really, really happy. And then we're not super worried about what happened to them, but the client's probably worried about it. So they know the answers we're looking for.
Yeah. And after Christmas is a good time to have that conversation because like people are, the pressure's off for a little bit and you get to actually meet them for a drink.
I think after Christmas, I think before Christmas, the month of December is like already pretty full for me. I'm not trying to sell anyone anything. I just want to have a coffee. And so I think this is a really good time to be having this conversation.
I'll put the value proposition this way too. If you're talking about a value-based return instead of an effort-based return, right? That's if the opposite is like a non-value proposition might be time, effort, a bigger version of something like that. If in order to increase the revenue with your client, you have to apply more effort, then you're not understanding your value proposition. So if the way you're going to get another $10,000 from that client a month is to find another human being that can put in $10,000 more worth of time and charge by the hour to get there. You're not looking at value proposition. You're looking at commodity proposition. I can find more humans to do that. A value proposition would say, because we were so successful, I can change the rate that we usually charge by $100 more per day or $200 more, or get a flat rate for that one service in a method-based thing. Hey, that strategy we provide is a $10,000 a month strategy because it has so much value packed into it, regardless if it only takes us a few hours to make that strategy. So that's the way to think of it, is like if you have to apply more effort or more hours or more time or more commodity to get there, you're not talking about value. Value should be something you could upsell into the conversation. It might be something you discover along. That's often an epiphany of like, wow, that's what I did. That's most valuable. That was really easy for me. And you would pay more money for something that's easy for me. Now I have that first, priority in place. Oh, it's what I love to do. It's very easy for me to do, and I can make a lot of money doing it. Those are really good returns on that effort or on that value.
And I'd say, in an effort to make this conversation about value practical, let's throw out a hypothetical and let's pin it to a target. Okay, so you've got a sales target of $1 million incremental dollars a year, 83 incremental $1,000 a month. What do I do with $83,000 a month? Well, if we've asked ourselves the questions, what do we like? What do we provide that's a solution to a problem? And how does that solution add value? If we're clear on that, let's give it a hypothetical. Let's say we like kinetic type projects for TV commercials for national restaurant brands. That's wildly specific, but that's how specific you should think about being. There are maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 of those sort of specific value adds, but let's find them. Okay, well, all of a sudden, $83,000 a month doesn't look that intimidating. If we're going to say 1/5 of that $83,000 is going to come from a kinetic type project for a 60-second TV commercial for a national restaurant brand. Presumably, we have one of those in our portfolio if we've narrowed down to sort of like that as an offering that we're interested in. It's a really good place to start. The last person for whom you produced a kinetic type for a 60-second spot for a national restaurant brand. Right off the bat, we have some sales outreach we can do. Nobody's guessing.
Yeah. Let's actually I'm going to show a bingo card. I'm going to put this kind of exact scenario you just brought together into something that we call a bingo card at RevThink. You'll see why we call it that. It's basically filling in the blanks that Joe just put there. And we basically start our bingo card by doing exactly what Joe said. We fill in the revenue we gain from clients over a 12-month period. So, for example, these are, by the way, this is not anybody's. I'm not showing any trade secrets here. We use ChatGPT to fill in these answers for us. But this actually is reflective of a real company that generates about $2.25 million a year. This is what their projects usually look like. And I'll zoom in if it's helpful too. Maybe I'll do that because I often have two.
Better.
Cool. So looking at this, one of the first things we analyze when looking at a client base is exactly what Joe's saying. Where's the most valuable work that we're doing? We sort this. This is basically an output from someone's accounting software, QuickBooks, revenue by client, paste it in here. And we're looking at obviously our biggest client is Amazon. We get about $300,000 a year from Amazon, or about 14% of our total revenue comes from that one client. So we can, by just looking at that, we're realizing well, what kind of work do we do for that company? And what other companies out there do we do similar work for? So you can see here where I just put this extra tail on here. This is a retail business, a tech business, media, tech, and retail. You can see obviously tech and retail is more what we're capable of doing or like doing. So we're looking at other tech companies in the future for outreach. That might be one way of looking at it. But also realizing that, look at these companies that are already spending $300,000 with us. If we wanted to get $30,000 more from Amazon, it's probably not much of a reach. That might just be an overage. That might just be a differentiator, a very small price differentiator. If I was trying to get $30,000 from Accenture, isn't that where you used to work, Matt? Accenture? Yeah, they're cheap apparently.
I was the green one. They're even cheaper than Accenture.
All right, but here, these bottom ones, I'd have to do 10 times the revenue for them. So almost just recognizing that your client base, and you start looking at who your actual clients are, where that work comes from, and where that outreach might be, like, hey, I can more likely get better returns on the clients that we're working with that we find the most value, and start poking holes in that goal right here at the top of our client list. Um, you also understand, like, again, this is a real company. We base off of a model off of a real existing company. This company that we took this from had 40 projects that they did in a year. It's 2.2 million in that 40 projects, and the top 5 of those clients did a little bit of half of it. So there are 35. We did 5 clients, got us half of the money, and 35 clients got us the other half. So the amount of effort now you're recognizing, like, you just have a long tail of work that doesn't really have a lot of value or effort. It's more effort and not a lot of value in the proposition. So as we're increasing our value prop, we can look really here at the top of our client chart and realize, wait, that's where we're providing the best value. Those are the people that recognize that value and are willing to give us the money for that value. That's where we should start fishing for that return. So really easy, actually. Just sorting your client list, doing some analysis this way can give you some of that first insight that you're talking about there, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. The projects you do for the clients who pay you the most money and the clients on whom you make the most money, let's not forget that, is the number one place to start. We don't need to reinvent the wheel every time we set a sales goal.
Yeah. Quite literally, you already know the names of the people that are going to give you the money next year. You already know their names. You work with them or have worked with them. Please reach out to them first. Find out how they're doing. Develop a relationship. Have that coffee with them. Understand that proposition. Ask them those good questions so you can tap into that rich resource before you go crazy with a bot on LinkedIn. I'm going to actually show in the next step here, just show how quickly $1 million adds up here. In this bingo card model we basically have set this thing up to have some revenue here at the top. You just look at different types of projects or different size of projects. It's pretty familiar that we can usually get one $10,000 project a month and one $25,000 project a month. That should be a pretty easy goal for most companies to kind of keep themselves going. A $10,000 project usually takes you 2 weeks, a week or 2 weeks to do that. A $25,000 project might take you 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month to do that. So to do 2 projects a month, but one at 10K and one at 25K, so just 2 projects a month, 24 projects a year, already makes you about $240,000. And think about how many clients you need to find to do this. You need to find maybe 1 client that gives you this a month. So you might need to find 12 $10,000 clients, or 1 client or 3 clients that give you a project a quarter, something like that. It kind of easily adds up when you start doing that. On a quarterly basis, you need, for these larger numbers, you need a longer sales cycle to get there. So when you're looking at these bigger numbers, you might need to give yourself more time. So for example, you just need one, if you did $150,000 and $160,000, so not a lot of differences. It can be a very basic upsell per quarter. So you're just looking at 1 per quarter or 8 a year of projects in this realm. If you kept up your basis and then you just added one of these to it, you're at 860. You're really close to $1 million, and we're barely even doing that many projects, right? We really did 32 projects total, and we can get there. And 32 projects, again, might be 5 or 6 clients. You don't need a whole lot of clients to get to that number. And then lastly, if you just add these bigger ones, these bigger tentpole events, add one of them a year. So you have a whole year to find that target, work that, understand the value proposition, pitch things over and over again until you get there. There's your $1 million right there. And how many projects did I have to do to get there? 34 projects total. And if I had repeat clients, or 1 client that gave me $300,000, or 3 clients that gave me $300,000, I'm $1 million just working with 3 clients alone. So that's how fast it adds up. And this bingo card tool that we use when we're projecting revenue for the year, these are the questions we want to ask, because I want to then eventually translate this to sales goals. I want to find out, hey, if I have these goals, what are the names of the people that we can get that from? and we translate it like this. We can say, hey, if we're going to hit that $1 million, it actually looks like this. Here's our top clients that we work with. What I need is in a year, three $25,000 projects, two 50s, 160, what's that? Like this is my big client. So I can generate revenue from that client that way. And here's where, Joe, you said like, well, what if I just added two more $10,000 projects from that, or our value proposition if I were to go from a $50,000 project to a $60,000 project. So originally, it looked like this, and I was only gaining 50s. What I can say is like, yeah, but what if I just upgraded one of these projects to 60 at the same number of awards I'm expecting, but just upgrade my value in that? All of a sudden, I'm gaining revenue by just that one upsell, and maybe one of these 50s becomes a 75.
And I'd
the value proposition
say
changes.
the way your 50 becomes a 60 or a 75 is by understanding what you like the best, what delivers a solution to a problem, and what your clients see value in. So saying I'm going to get 50, I'm going to get 50K projects without pinning that to a project type is a huge waste of a goal setting exercise.
Yeah, and you can also like if you're in deep with a client, you can turn like this Apple example here. I could turn these two 50s into one contract and say, hey, how about I just have $100,000 contract I can accomplish what's in that window? And what happens internally in procurement or whatever, they feel like they gave you one project at this, even though you have two deliverables. And when you come back for your second project that year, now you've just made a $50,000 or $100,000 client into a $150,000 client because they gave you two projects, but added one more to it. So it's kind of asking and tightening up that first round so that you have two deliverables in one project, and then a third one by combining effort, combining understanding within your working model. That's another way of doing it. So I can easily start growing that. And these bingo cards are just ways of kind of thinking through that theory, right? I'm actually not really identifying what those projects are, but it gets my brain thinking strategically about those upsells, about that value, and where that's going to come from, and how quickly it adds up.
Question from Jocelyn. Do you approach this as establishing and selling different packages, so creating different offerings at the 10, 25, 50 that are variations of the thing you like, or is it just going in there and finding the people that want what you like?
That's a really good question. I think it depends on what your thing is. So if you've got something you can deliver at scale and you can make margin at 25K, you might as well call that a package, and you might as well say for 25K, this is the value you're going to get, and we can do a zillion of these. If your human resources are tied up in every project, it's risky to commoditize that way because then you're going to have to scale your human resources to keep up with your demand. At that point, you should be asking yourself, who's willing to pay the most for the value I can create? And so I think it just depends on the unique solution that you provide.
I'm going to
probably when you're getting over 50K, offerings go out the window. It's about big creative things.
And I'll put a spin to it too. This isn't the concept of a package per se, because I agree. Like package is a really great term to work what you're talking about, basically a strategy. It's like a strategy of engagement. Maybe I can package some of this together and create a value proposition by packaging it. That's a really smart way of thinking of it. I'm just going to spin it a little bit and create this idea of, instead of a policy, instead of a package, and say, hey, I'm just going to show you this really quickly here. So if I take all of the money that this company earns, that's above a $25,000 a year minimum engagement, right? It's $2 million, just over $2 million. And that is with 19 clients. So this bottom, everything under $25,000 is $200,000. So it's 10% of it, and it's 21 clients. So if I simply just said, hey, our minimum annual engagement is $25,000, and knowing that when you're working with companies that are really giving you a one-off deal of something like, hey, I have this $4,000 project with you and no future projects in mind, in other words, I can't package it with something else, you would tell that client, you're not qualified. Actually, we don't take on clients that only give us $4,000 a year worth of work. So That's another way of thinking of it, is like packaging it, bringing it together, but also making internal goals to say, hey, as a policy, let's not accept clients that give us less than $25,000 a year. I don't need the $10,000 um, uh, product line anymore. Hope that helps. Just another way is kind of looking at the same coin with a different side.
Yeah. All good points. Anyone got any questions? Travis, I called you out in the chat because I know you handle offerings, but what do you do around this area?
Yeah, so I mean, we do both. We offer like bespoke packages. It really depends what the client's coming with, who they are, yeah, if what they're asking for seems like something that fits that kind of template mold, not template, but just the default
Repeatable
packages. Yeah, repeatable packages. And then yeah, so I mean, and they would fit into like sort of Jocelyn's outlined their like price levels. So a 10 grand kind of offering a 15 or a 20. And then the higher value projects tend to be a bit more bespoke, and so it's about some sort of tailored creative solution. So it's who knows what the number's going to be.
Thank you.
I feel like we sometimes we have it easy because we can say, hey, it's as simple as, and then we say asking for $10,000 more, and we know that the effort you're putting into it is like, Tim, it's not that easy. Like, I actually have negotiated with these clients over and over and over again, and I can't get an extra $500 from them. How do I really do that? Besides just like, okay, cool, on a spreadsheet, you add $10,000. That's super easy. But I wanted to say, first of all, we recognize that our goal by using a bingo card or putting these kind of bigger visions in place without the details to start off the conversation is to give you a sense of purpose or intent of the problem you're trying to solve. There is an entrepreneurial effort that's needed in this process here, and we recognize that. And as you work from the big down to the small, that entrepreneurial problem you're solving becomes more and more obvious. But our calling out today is say, like, without the big picture, you'll never get to the small stuff. So a bingo card is just to show you what's possible. So you start thinking, oh, I have to start opening up my mind and my thoughts to those opportunities. And then if you know the entrepreneurial formula, which is need plus resources equals solution, then your mind starts actually looking for those needs. I need to find those $50,000 needs out there, or as Joe pointed out earlier, those things that I do well, that I provide current value, and then I can make a lot of money or charge for that, or provide, someone's willing to pay for that value I've put out there. So that level of engagement to solve that problem and break away from who you currently are to who you want to become starts with big picture thinking, and then gets into the weeds as you get more and more detail of who your clients are, the work that you're doing, the work that you love, and so on.
And also, how can I put more effort into my relationships with those people who are bringing me the 50 grand, the 60 grand projects, rather than just expending my energy on any new call that comes in the door? It's like there might be 3 or 4 really special people that I'm just doing a job and they're not contacting for 6 or 7 months. I'm not making any effort, and they should love me.
Yeah, I'm not going to call out my client, but I was talking to a client earlier today, and they reached out to a regular contact. They work with this person frequently. The kind of work that they've done, they've always reached out to this person. So they had an existing relationship. But their client was frustrated with the way the industry was going. And the client said, I'm ditching this. I'm looking for something else. And when they did, and the client's pivot found a brand new capability that's possible and opportunity for not only themselves, but because my client made the connection, open up the door that they usually open up, followed through, they see a whole brand new opportunity for themselves. So really, like, it's not only on you, you're part of an economy that other people are growing. And you might be thinking, well, I haven't talked to that person for a while. They probably have no work for me because they're not calling me, and you don't put that effort into it. You might be missing those bigger opportunities. Or Joe, as you say, I know how you're going to get $1 million a year. Effort. You have to put effort into it. That's how you're going to get there.
Oh, 1,000%. I'm often finding with clients and with entrepreneurs that I meet, we talk about their best relationships. And a narrative I hear over and over again is we've got a great relationship with this person or company. They bring us projects every time we have them. We don't have to expend effort on them. And I'm like, what? The people who bring you the projects the most, who like you the most, are the people on whom you expend the absolute maximum effort. A, because they might have more, and B, because they are going to be evangelists for you. The one question every time I hop on here and every time I speak to an entrepreneur, who do you know that I should talk to? Not do you know anyone that I should talk to? Who do you know that I should talk to? Your best clients have contemporaries in the same organization. They have friends in the same circles. They have clients they've worked with in the past. And if your effort on relationship building is limited because you know they're going to bring you a project, you are missing out on your biggest advocate's entire universe of potential business for you. So to your point, Tim, there's no reason why your top 5 clients shouldn't be half of your revenue, and there's no reason why their networks shouldn't be an even greater percentage of your revenue. And I think that level of an intention when we think about where to get $10,000 a month is often really easily overlooked.
So who has a question right now that's asking, yeah, but how do you actually do it? So Joe, I have a client. I do the report that Tim told me to. I can see the top client on there. How do what proposition am I putting out there that allows for me to get another project from them or open the door that they would recommend me to one of their colleagues? What do I actually do? Do I email them? Do I present something to them? Do I ask them for coffee? Do I take them out to dinner? Do I buy them a huge Christmas present? Like, give me the real, like, how do I discover that process? And then what does it really look like when I've discovered it?
I think first things first, we're going to go back to my 3 keys. What do you want to sell this person? What is the work you like doing? What I'm gonna mess them up now. What is the work you like doing? What creates a clear solution to an actual problem, and how valuable is that solution to that client? So if you know those going in, well, then the answer to the question is, what do you know about the person? Do they like coffee? You should take them out to coffee. Do you have the context? If not, you should email them, right? These are really simple things, but often we get so worried about like making the sale that we forget that just being ourselves was enough to win the work, and it was enough to keep the relationship. And so you have to be yourself back at them.
Yeah.
And so from there, when you're going into a conversation, you know the thing you want, and you can prime them to ask if they feel like they still have that need. Is this problem still bothering you? Do you have different problems? Oh, by the way, we solve more than one type of problem. As long as you know the value you add, the solution that you create, and you get a sense of how valuable that is for that person, you can be having a sales conversation every time you're having a conversation without it feeling like you're switching from consultant to salesperson.
And this would be in that category of the cliche, be more interested than interesting, right? So ask questions, be curious, be interested in what their problems are, then trying to make yourself interesting to them by showing off your latest work and, wearing your latest tattoo of the latest project you've done. Like, it doesn't have to be show and tell in order to engage them. The best way for engagement is to find out where they are. If the value you provide it has more opportunity to them or something else, and then in that learning process or in that engagement of being interesting or interested, you can find and glean more from them.
Seth, I did tell you I was going to say it, and now I am. Seth said something very valuable to me just about an hour ago. He said people don't buy your projects, they buy your perspective. And when we think about these relationship building conversations with your existing and past clients, and really anytime you feel like you might be in a selling situation, you need to ask the questions whose answers allow your perspective to flourish. You can give away your perspective all day and all night because they know they know that they need you to implement. I don't really want to know what's in your reel. I don't really want to hear about the last thing you did. I want to know what you learned and how you created value. If you're clear on how you created value and how valuable that was to client A or client B, it's very easy to ask, do you feel yourself Do you feel yourself experiencing these same problems?
Okay, so now I'm going to do a shameless plug because I want people to understand that we're going to be pretty serious about this going into 2025. The confab groups that we do, and those of you, I see Brent here, Joe, you and Brent are doing a confab group for companies that are intentionally small. That's one of the groups. The small group I'm doing, a confab group I'm doing, is one based on sales, and we're quite literally going to use the 10 weeks to establish your sales process. I've been joking that it might be like study hall, like there might be 10 minutes of quiet because we're all writing our emails that week to those clients and doing outreach. But one of the things I want to do in that establish is getting people to recognize that you don't have to wait to be asked to pitch to do a pitch. If you have a good idea or something that's interesting, you can actually pitch your client on a concept and idea. Now you have to be invited into that. There's a little bit of a warm up back to get there, but to just wait around for them to say, hey, I want to come pitch on the project that we have. If you have an understanding, a method, you've listened to them and you know that there's a perspective that you have, and you want to get that in the door so they understand and hear that, like you need to ask to be invited and then come in with that pitch deck, not a capability deck, although it might have some capabilities inside of it, a pitch deck of saying, here's where we want to go with you. This is what we're interested in doing. And here's what we think the value we can add for you. So we're going to use our 10 weeks to get closer and closer to being welcome into the room more and more often and going after those contacts that we have. And if anyone's interested in the Confab group, we will announce it soon, but you can also just DM me or Erich and be part of that. We do them quarterly. So each quarter we have different topics and different groups that are made up. But I find that work product and working with others is very helpful. I'm happy to answer any. Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, as long as we're doing it, I'm going to plug mine as well. So there's some nuance between a selling situation and a pitch situation. Really often people come to me and they say, I just need to get in more pitch situations. The truth is that you're in selling situations probably every day, and those you need to matriculate those into pitch situations. So my confab group, which coincidentally will be right before Tim's, is about recognizing when you're in a selling situation and what to do when you're in them so that you can move the ball forward into pitch situations where you can show off your expertise. Those two things, in my opinion, are parts of a whole, and we're often only addressing one. So we're going to address both in the next quarter.
Yeah. So if you want to spend 2 hours on Thursday mornings, you can go spend an hour. I'll probably be in Joe's anyway, but spend an hour with Joe and then do study hall with me afterwards, do a work group part with me afterwards. But mine is about establishing that routine, understanding and measuring that effort. And then you spend the first quarter doing it. The other 3 quarters should be kind of easy once you have that routine up and going. I'm happy to answer any more questions too, by the way. We usually stop around 2:30, 2:45. I want to be aware of everyone's time, but I see that a lot of people are hanging out. So I feel like there's a couple of unanswered questions or thoughts that are out there. Throw them at us, raise your hand. Just unmute yourself, whatever you want to do. Or I can keep on asking intriguing questions. Do you want one more intriguing question, Joe, to wrap us up here a little bit?
Wait, do I have one more?
Yeah. All right, here's Travis. Go ahead, Travis.
So I just had 2 questions. I missed your 2 plugs there. Those were things that you guys are doing next year, start of next year. Is that right?
Yeah, we call them confab groups. We launch them each quarter. So starting in January of next year, we'll start another collection of confabs. And we'll go from January through about March with that group, and then we'll start up another one. So yeah, those will be, we'll have that in community, posted on our website, and probably send out some emails related to that as well.
Cool. And I just had one other question. I'm not sure if it was discussed because I was a little bit late joining this morning or this evening for you guys. But the spreadsheet the bingo card, the whole sort of tab spreadsheet that you were looking at, is that something that you have available to the community and if so, where?
Yeah, for sure. I'll post it right there in the discussion. When we post this replay in about 24 hours, I'll make sure I put a link to it so everyone can make a copy of it. And the way we distribute this stuff out there is we just make it be available. It's in Google Sheets. You follow the link, and the link will immediately ask you to make a copy so that you're not putting your information into a publicly shared spreadsheet, because we have to kind of share it that way. If you need any help or want to walk through it, we have other videos on community that you can search for. You can search for bingo card and see when we've done it before and when we used it, and as well as you can always direct message me or Joe or Matt if you're kind of walking through something and you want to help with it. We're always willing to do half-hour calls and sit down with people and show how these tools work because we want these in your hands as much as possible. So yes, this will be readily available. Make sure everyone gets a copy of it if they want one. And this is the new improved. I cleaned it up a little bit for 2025. So if you have an old one, you might want a copy of the new one.
Yeah, I saw a video from 2022, so I was wondering if it was a bit different, but yeah.
It's the same method. The concept actually came from when I was working with a client out of Toronto, and he was looking for these bigger pictures. And I realized, wait, you have these buckets of needs. And I thought, like, it's kind of like a bingo card. We just have to check them off. I got $10,000 clients. I have $25,000 clients, and I'll get to my $1 million. So that's where the concept that came from. So I think it's as old as 2018 is when I first made one of these crazy things. I've just started getting better and better at what the decision points are. So usually the newer it is, the more I've understood like the decision points. But thanks, Matt, or Travis. Thanks for the question. EB, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right.
Good, good. I know one of the things that you guys were talking about was sort of adding value and client, saying to figuring out how to get clients, your same clients, to maybe pay more for the work you're doing. We're in, but we're in live action production. And so where we are sort of in the pipeline often is when they've already made the decision, like we want to produce a thing, we know what it is, we have an X amount of money, we're going to these people, we get those calls a lot. We're trying to sort of get upstream to offer like creative so that we can capture more cash basically. And we usually find that we end up doing that work anyway, we're just not getting paid for it. So wondering about like how to sort of approach maybe getting as part of that extra cash, especially when you're in something like production where it's like they kind of just think it costs what it costs. And is that asking those producers, hey, like who is making those decisions before you? Can we be however, you might go about that. But approaching your current clients for maybe people who are in different parts of the pipeline than you're sort of getting the work from right now.
I think your instinct is right, EB. Approach the people you already know. My advice when you do that, though, you can always treat it as a field test, but be prepared with the value you want to add. So, hey, know us for value X. The value we're interested in adding is X plus whatever, and it puts us way further upstream. So your instinct, who makes those decisions and sort of like when do they happen? And then I'm a big fan of the language, what's it going to take for me to get further upstream, right? And if you have a trusted relationship with someone, just simply saying, what's it going to take to insert the thing you want to happen is likely to get you a candid answer. So if you've got 1, 2, 5 people you trust, I'd start with that question and just see where it goes.
Okay. Yeah,
I'd throw two more things in there because I think you're exactly right. Leveraging your current relationship, you can actually literally ask for that. Like, hey, I want to talk about moving upstream or being part of this, the creative proposition. I can imagine if the right opportunity was there to tell someone, hey, we'd like to give you I don't know specifically what yours can be, but like, I'd like to give you different directors to choose from. And those directors might give you different value points or different cost points or price points for those directors. So kind of like shaking up of like, don't just assume that the one director that you've always used is the only option we have. You can create a value proposition that way. The last one I've seen people use a lot is and this would be on a newer relationship when the opportunity is there, is when you say, oh, you've misunderstood what our services are. We don't just do live action execution of projects. We're actually part of the creative process. But I can see where you are in your current pipeline. It's not too late. We can actually be engaged in that creative effort right now. And I've seen it literally, the client's like, oh, I didn't realize you could be part of that. Yes, we'd love to invite you in. But they've taken on all the burden thinking they had to solve it in order to keep you cheap. And you're saying, no,
Yeah.
no, actually, you're better at a better price point, bringing us in sooner, letting us add that. So it's a little bit more costly up front, but our production costs go down, our creative costs go up. And that way you're just pocketing more profit, even if it's the
Yeah.
same total budget. You know what I mean? So I've seen
Right. Yeah. And
those
that's,
three different types of pivots.
yeah. Yeah. That's all great. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, of course. What do you got, Seth?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys just addressed this a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to dig into a little bit of the nuance of your list of the three things that you look for in solving a problem for a company. Like we talk about clients a lot as if they're this ambiguous whole thing, but the truth is on a daily, we're talking to a person that represents the client. And sometimes their problem to be solved or their interpretation of how we add value isn't always in alignment with the company. And so I'm just curious if you could speak to a little bit about how to sync that up and how to dig into finding that company problem to be solved through the perspective of your contacts.
Do you want to start? Do you want to start, Joe?
So I've got a way to go. Do you have a way to go?
Yeah. Either way, go for it.
I think that my way to go, Seth, is understanding the relationship between your client's purview and what you think the company goal is. And the big way that I like to ask it is like, what is going to make you look good? So the questions for me, what is your boss looking for? What is your boss's boss looking for? What's going to get you a raise? I've used that language with you before, and not everybody likes to use it. But what's going to get you a raise is a provocative way to get at what's the thing behind the value I'm creating for you, stakeholder, because it forces them to answer in a way that is reflective of the company or the team's larger position. And so I think at some point, if you want to level up the value you're providing from value to a stakeholder internally to value to that organization, you have to know what that organization values.
I love that. I'm going to point this out that if you look at Joe's LinkedIn, you'll see that he has a company called Provocateur. And you can see a lot of his process is exactly that. He likes to engage in the process to provoke a thinking, like inspire something. Like, is this a problem that needs to be solved? Can he break it into smaller pieces? And to just dig and ask is a really great way to get there. I'd say this in a really practical way too, Seth, is that from a consulting point of view, one thing that we often do is establish language. So one thing that you can work on with a client is say like, hey, you know, you seem to be representing a client, and when you come to me, you're giving me a package and you call it this. Let me inspire you. Like if we used a different word, so you might be calling us like a production company. You keep calling us and you're acting as if we're a production company. And they're like, it's fine. We do production, but maybe I can inspire you to think of us as a studio. And when I think of studio, what I mean is that there's a creative aspect before the production aspect. And that's where most of our clients win with us, is getting the creative stuff up front and then the production side on the back end. And by just introducing that one piece of language, the differentiated language and the why behind it, makes that client go, oh, I didn't realize that. Or, oh, I see where the decision points would be when I'm looking or thinking about you. And that's part of that positioning thing you're doing with them, is finding the right place for and right language to express to them what you do specifically and how that works to their benefit. So sometimes I just like that. It's like I invent a word sometimes, but other times I just use common words that people mix up. And I say like, I'm going to sort out these words so you understand the value of each one. And now I can say to you, you're just using me for production. We'd have to charge you a higher rate if we're just doing production, because we're not just a production company. And then you start giving them that leverage in that language.
Thank you both.
Yep. Okay, let's do this. It's 10 minutes to 3. I'm about ready to head up to Santa Monica from here because there's a happy hour happening in here in Los Angeles. And those of you in LA, see a couple names here. You are invited. Like Terry, I know that you're pretty far away, but if you can make it over to the west side, it's at Santa Monica Brew Works. And one of the RevCommunity members is actually throwing it for us. Andreessen Digital is actually hosting it for us. So if you're available in the area, please feel free to come by 5 to 8 tonight. We're just going to go there and have a little Rev community moment, meet one another, and meet some potential client, and meet this awesome person that invited us. So I'm heading up that way. We will have the weekly briefing next week. We'll kind of keep this conversation going, working us toward this 2025 goals. We can set you all up for that. Looking into really, we're going to call it Thrive in 25, right? We're going to basically get into 2025 and do this well. There's been a lot of pivot happening, and we're going to start breaking down these pieces so you get these value propositions in place for you with your clients. Joe, thank you for kind of pushing the buttons this week to make this conversation take place, and being the provocateur that you are to set us straight on what's going to make the difference when we're going to grow $1 million this year.
Happy to do it. Happy to be here with you all.
Yeah. And I'll see you guys all next week for the weekly briefing. In the meantime, we'll see you on community. Please feel free to reach out, be part of this, add comments, add questions, and so on. And Travis, I'll make sure I tag you when I post that the bingo card as well, so you know when it's available. All right, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.